What's something that scared you as a child than you realize now? Just shows kids are freaking stupid. When I was younger I overheard my dad and brother talking about dinosaurs. I thought I heard them say that if you kill those giant mosquitoes, then the dinosaurs would come back. For some reason I decided not to go into the room and ask them if that was correct. I'm pretty sure I didn't ask cause they seemed unfazed, but I was freaking, so I didn't tell anyone. But I spent the entire summer petrified that someone would kill a big mosquito. Every night I would lay in bed plotting how to escape or survive if the dinos came to my hometown. Well, towards the end of the summer, my sister called my dad into the room we shared at the time. It was early morning and she woke me up to tell me about a big mosquito in the window. My dad killed it before I could convince him otherwise. And that was that. The dinosaurs were coming back. Everyone was probably going to die. That was my fate. I had my eyes peeled everywhere we went to look for the first signs of dinosaurs arriving. I thought I had seen one in someone's yard while driving by, but that was the only sighting. Eventually, after nothing happened, I realized I might have heard wrong. Still didn't tell anyone until years after. I freaking hate those giant mosquitoes. I know they aren't the same, but they look just like a mosquito, just 40x the size. They seem completely harmless, they just creep me out. There's a local legend in my hometown that there is a black panther that roams the area. This is rural Australia with lots of bushland. However, when my dad first told me the story about it when I was about 10 and we were out walking the dog at dusk, I misheard the word panther as pants. So here I was, a 10-year-old scared shitless that a pair of black pants with no legs in them was gonna run out of the bushes and attack me. Everybody gangsta till the pants start walking. Danger plant crossing signs. Yeah, I thought plants would uproot and cross the roads unexpectedly. Terrified me. Then I found out many years later plant was another word for construction vehicles. Day of the Triffids is an apocalyptic book similar to Zombie Outbreak, but instead of reanimated corpses the threat is walking, intelligent, carnivorous plants, and almost everybody on Earth went blind. I remember at an early age, I was sitting in the car just daydreaming when suddenly I pictured myself just floating in black nothingness. Like, imagine if the entire solar system just poofed and you were left floating in pitch black. I had an existential crisis when I was like 9. Also, heights. I still get sweaty palms just thinking of being somewhere high up. Abraham Lincoln. Dude scared me as kid. Big tall dude wearing a suit and top hat. It was always nightmare fuel as a kid, no clue why, and tags from shirts. I used to cry when I saw them. Dude scared me as kid. This guy is like 158 years old. That if I ate certain seeds, like watermelon seeds, they would implant in my belly and germinate into a plant, bursting me from the inside. I legit induced vomiting if I swallowed any seeds. I remember the episode of Rugrats where that happened. It was definitely nightmare fuel. I was literally afraid that a zombified Michael Jackson would come into my room and spook me. Nothing worse than that, just show up. I was scared of old Jacko as a kid, and the thought of him but decaying was the end of the world to me. Obviously this is complete nonsense, but yes, kids are dumb. My brother used to be scared that if he went into the bathroom and turned the light on, Michael Jackson would fall through the ceiling. We discovered this after a few days of him not showering. Thought I would literally die via constipation if I swallowed gum. Oh, the drama that ensued the day I actually did accidentally swallow some gum. The fear can come back in adulthood. Just replace swallowing gum with painkillers. The dryer had a stocking on the end of the vent that would kick around. That was pure horror to see in the dark basement by myself. I used to think that I would get eaten by sharks during bath time. I'm a 28-year-old woman now. I still think that, but at least I can drink my fears away. Failure. I thought I was the only one. At the age of 38, I still have to mentally convince myself that there are no sharks in the bath, or the pool, or the landlocked freshwater lakes, but it's always a leap of faith when I step in. I'm still sure there's a giant invisible shark waiting just for me. Around the age of 6 I developed a callus on my finger because of the way I hold a pencil. I was relentlessly bullied as a kid, and at one point I took to praying that I would turn into a horse and be able to be free and without bullies or school crap. It was the only logical solution to my woes. Back to the callus. One day I finally noticed it. I was certain my transformation was beginning and I was panicking. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was horrified at my own stupidity to think that turning into a horse would solve all my problems. That, and how would my mom know which horse I was? Surely once I was a horse, I wouldn't be able to speak anymore, and so I had to confess to her what I was becoming before the transformation was complete. I needed to say goodbye. I needed her to know it wasn't her fault, but that there was no going back. I've already begun to grow my hooves. I came into her room at about 2 AM, hysterically crying, screaming nonsense about how I was so sorry I was going to never be her daughter again but a wild and free horse, and that I deeply regret asking God for something so selfish and so permanent. It took her a good 3 hours to talk me down, and weeks before I was fully convinced that it was just a callus. I think I was like a tiny 1990s Tina Belcher, and a complete unit at that. I was horrified by my own stupidity. What a fool you were. During its mating ritual, a male superb bird of paradise spreads out its wings, revealing a weird pattern that looks like a face. It freaked me the frick out when I saw it on a nature show as a kid. Even to this day I refuse to Google it because I find it so unsettling. I used to be terrified of the song The 12 Days of Christmas. Every time I heard it I would just think of being stuck perpetually in some Christmas themed hall with these huge birds and that song playing over and over again. Stuck there forever. 'Twas whack, as the French in France say. If you ever look at an ice cube, especially ones made in the trays you fill with water, there are these needle-shaped voids radiating out from the center. I thought they would sting me like a jellyfish. As silly as it sounds at first, recognizing patterns like that probably helped our ancestors avoid jellyfish and other stinging animals and plants. Your monkey brain was just trying to watch out for you. I was freaking terrified of the bear from Bear in the Big Blue House when I was a child. Up until around 4 or 5 years old I would immediately start crying if the show ever came on the TV. I have a very vivid memory of seeing a picture of the bear on the front of a children's magazine and then running out of the room screaming. I used to be scared of snakes. Fair enough, I suppose. But you see, I was terrified that they would get into my room and bite me as I slept. I live in England, in an urban area. I used to think that we had a finite amount of skin, and that if you used all your layers of skin a wound would never heal. Like if you kept skinning your knees eventually they'd stop scabbing up because you were out of skin. I got a pretty major gash on my knee when I was 5 and had to have stitches, and I think the way my parents explained what stitches did triggered this fear in me, but I was sure that I could run out of skin for a few years. Well, that fear has horror movie potential. Shiver. When I was a kid I was afraid of the dents that furniture left in the carpet. My parents would move the couch to vacuum and I cried every time because I was terrified of the dents. I was maybe 4 or 5 at the time. My parents said that if I stare into a microwave while it's on, it would microwave my eyeballs. Wasn't until I was 14 that I realized that was BS. Your parents are buttholes and it's hilarious. I was scared of you Gabba Gabba. Primarily, I was scared of the robot and the green dude. I once had a nightmare that was literally just the green guy, just the ordinary him, going down a slide. Exactly that, no other oddities. That was a nightmare to me, somehow. 1. I used to be scared of anything sticky being on me, from plain stickers, to band-aids, to grass on my feet after getting out of a pool playing in a sprinkler. 2. Glow-in-the-dark things freaked me out at night. I'd always hide them so I couldn't see them, but once I put on nail polish that I didn't know was glow-in-the-dark and cried when they started glowing that night at bedtime. 3. The Boogeyman from VeggieTales. My only escape from that fear was my mom singing the song from the episode about God being bigger than him every night before bed until I was way too old. God is bigger than the Boogeyman. He's bigger than Godzilla and the monsters on TV. Bloody Mary showing up in the mirror if I turned the lights off. A cousin told me that whole story when I was way too young to hear it, and to be totally honest, The instinct to flee the bathroom as soon as the lights are off hasn't been fully squashed. In 1966 when I was 6 I saw my first show on color TV, Batman. Cesar Romero as the Joker scared the living daylights out of me. The hallway in my house, with the lights off, it was so dark you couldn't see the end. I was always afraid a skeleton would lurch out of the darkness and chase me. I couldn't go past doorways leading to dark rooms for the same reason. The myth that if you unplug the drain while still in the bathtub, you'll get sucked down. Felt dumb about that for a long time after I decided it wasn't true. Quicksand. Thought that crap was going to be everywhere. Also, scared of God punishing me for all the sins that my folks convinced their children that they were committing. Thanks for teaching religion through fear and intimidation. Yell. And you wonder why none of your children will have a thing to do with religion in adulthood. That I would be sucked under the tread of an escalator if I didn't get off in time? How was that even going to work? There isn't room. I'm 56 and escalators still weak me out. Have to sort of jump off them. Crazy, I know. I used to be so uncontrollably scared of any maze games as a kid because my sister made me play the scary maze game when I was 5 or 6. I was told that once a year, a kid in town would be sacrificed to the dragon that lives on the edge of town. Not a bad kid or a good kid, just any kid. I believed it until age 9 or 10. When I was 4 my mom told me that if I didn't keep my belly button clean, little green bugs would crawl inside my body through there and live inside me. It was a horrifying thought at the time. Years later, after I'd realized it was bulls, I asked my mom about her story. She laughed and said I never said that. It was then that I realized she didn't remember her BS lie to her child to get him to clean himself properly, and it humanized her to me. My dad used to take my brother and I for long walks on Sunday afternoons. I remember vividly being terrified of ditches and wanting to be carried past them. Several years later it dawned on me it was 'cause ditches rhymed with witches. I was scared of witches and ditches. Bonus stupid. Had recurring nightmares for years about a certain style of glasses. 30 years later it dawned on me I had seen Dame Edna Everage on TV when I was 3 or 4 and it had seared itself into my brain and I was scared of anyone who wore those style glasses. Still make me shudder when I see them. I thought that if you got a zit it meant you're gay. The first time I got a zit I thought oh no, what are my parents gonna think now that I'm gay? They never mentioned the zit so I just thought they were okay with me being gay. Where to start? I thought King Kong was hiding in my ceiling. I was scared of the noise on my cassette tape of fairy tales that indicated it was time to turn the tape over. I was allowed to stay up late on New Year's Eve for the first time and got scared when it got to 11 PM and there were programs on the TV that I didn't normally get to see. Obviously, fear of not falling asleep before Father Christmas came and ending up with no presents. Tub drains. I knew I couldn't fit, but it scared the crap out of me. Once I stepped on one and almost threw up. I was so scared. Now I avoid them because they are full of my wife's hair. I thought that flipping the bird meant that you would literally go to heck. My 6-year-old brain couldn't contain my curiosity, so I did it and thought I'd go to heck when I died because of it. That Catholic guilt, lol. In the 70s the media learned to terrify parents with fears of kidnappers. Young Typhoon here misheard it as kid snippers. Obviously these were child thieving humans with giant Zoidberg and lobster claws. They would steal you but hide you in your own house. More of a mutated inconvenience, but it terrified me. Just last night I read my 4 years old a library book where a little boy doesn't like his little brother, until one night the little brother hugs him when he has a nightmare. It's a cute story, and my son isn't a huge fan of his little sister, so I was telling him how great having a sister is, and that my sister used to help me when I was scared at night. He inquired further, and I knew I had to severely edit the story. The real story? Well, honey, I watched a video about how to escape a house fire. I also was very proud that my big sister finally let me have the top bunk. However, every night for a long time, just before falling asleep, I would get a really strong feeling that our house would start on fire. Because smoke rises, sleeping on the top bunk meant I would suffocate and die before everyone else in the house. So instead, your aunt would sleep on the floor with me. so that we could both army crawl to safety when the house was inevitably engulfed in flames. Sweet dreams. Not me, but when my brother was 5 he was terrified of a statue of Jack Benny my grandmother had. She told him she got rid of it, but would actually just put it under a bed when he was coming over. One day he looked under that bed only to see Jack Benny grinning back at him. He ran out screaming, "Help grandma, Jack Benny is back to get us." When I was a kid, I used to be deathly afraid of Pumpkinhead. The problem was that I never watched any of those movies, so I completely made up what he looked like in my head. I was straight up terrified of buttons. My dad had PJs with big blue ones that scared the crap out of me, and I wouldn't hug him goodnight if he was wearing them. Coraline must have been fun to watch. When TV stations would do their scheduled test of the emergency broadcast system, the alarm tone always scared the heck out of me. I was always afraid that a meteor was going to strike the earth and wipe us all out, or that the old pine tree in my front yard was gonna get knocked over by a tornado and destroy my room. Terrified of tornadoes. I live next to the mountains and they're very rare here, but I snuck down one night while my parents were watching Twister and it scarred me for a long time. I thought jet trails were tornadoes starting and was scared of wind. I used to think that if you went to archery practice there was a random chance that you would be selected to be the target. There was never any plans for me to go to archery practice. I had an irrational fear of Mr. Rogers and Michael Jackson. When I was in first grade, 9/11 happened, and by that time Mr. Rogers had died. My friend said she saw a PBS commercial after 9/11 where Mr. Rogers had glowing red eyes and said to be safe after 9/11. And I quote, "I know I'm dead but I'm really alive." My friend was so serious and I believed her. I told my parents, and they told me not to worry. One night my 12-year-old brother came into my room wearing a sweater vest singing "It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood." I screamed bloody murder. As for Michael Jackson, I basically thought he was going to abduct me and keep me captive at Neverland. Don't ask me why. After my older brother got his wisdom teeth out, he was super high and plastered pictures of Michael Jackson all over my room. Again, I scream bloody murder. My dad comes in to see what's wrong and takes all the pictures down. He says he's got them all and goes to tuck me in, and on my pillow is another picture of MJ. I slept on the couch that night. That I'm the map scene in Dora the Explorer. At the end of the song he'd say "I'm the MAAAP" and the camera would zoom into his mouth. I thought that sucker was gonna swallow me whole, so I booked it out of the room whenever the map scene came up. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.